Close your eyes for a moment and think back to the kitchens of the past. Maybe it was your grandmother's kitchen with its linoleum floors, floral curtains, and that ever-present smell of something cooking on the stove. The kitchen wasn't just a place to make meals, it was the heart of the home. And tucked away in those cupboards and drawers were gadgets and tools that we barely see anymore. Some of them were quirky, some incredibly clever, and others downright odd by today's standards. But each one tells a story about how families lived, cooked, and shared time together. Today, we're looking at 10 forgotten kitchen tools you won't believe existed. 1. Butter churns. Before supermarkets filled their shelves with neatly wrapped sticks of butter, families made it themselves, often in big wooden butter churns. These were tall barrels with a handle that you'd push up and down, over and over, until thick, golden butter separated from the cream. For children, it was both a chore and a thrill. They'd take turns working the churn, sneaking little tastes when they could. The sound of the handle squeaking, the anticipation of spreading fresh butter onto warm bread, it was an experience. Butter churns slowly vanished as refrigeration improved and butter became cheap and easy to buy. But for many, the churn wasn't just a kitchen tool, it was a symbol of self-reliance and homegrown comfort. 2. Meat grinders. Every kitchen once had a heavy, cast-iron meat grinder. It bolted onto the counter, and with a simple hand crank, you could turn cuts of beef or pork into ground meat for meatloaf, sausages, or family stews. The sound of the crank, the smell of the fresh meat, the way it would come out in long strands, kids watched in fascination. And unlike today, you knew exactly what went into your ground meat. By the 1970s and 80s, though, grocery stores made pre-ground beef common and affordable. The grinders were slowly retired to basements and attics, replaced by convenience. But they remind us of a time when cooking meant truly making things from scratch. 3. Egg coddlers. Here's a tool many people today haven't even heard of: egg coddlers. These small porcelain cups with metal lids were used to cook eggs gently in boiling water. The result was a perfectly soft, delicate egg that felt almost luxurious. They made breakfast an occasion, turning something ordinary into something special. Families might bring them out on Sunday mornings or holidays, making a simple meal feel like an elegant treat. Today, very few people bother with them. Scrambled eggs in a pan or microwave are faster. But egg coddlers remind us of when meals weren't always about speed, but about savoring the ritual. Or ice picks. Before freezers could spit out perfect cubes of ice with the push of a button, families used ice picks. Back then, ice often came in giant blocks, delivered by the iceman and stored in an icebox. The ice pick, a wooden handle with a sharp steel point, was used to chip away pieces for drinks or cooling food. The sharp crack of the ice breaking filled the kitchen, and sometimes little shards would fly across the counter. As refrigerators with trays and eventually automatic ice makers became the norm, the humble ice pick was left behind. Today, they're more often seen in old movies than in real kitchens. 5. Rolling butter molds. Butter wasn't just churned, it was decorated. Families once used rolling butter molds, carved wooden rollers that pressed pretty patterns into the butter. Flowers, stars, even initials could appear on the soft yellow surface. This little detail showed the pride people took in their cooking. A simple dinner became special when butter was served shaped like a flower or marked with a family's initials. Now butter is simply unwrapped and spread. But butter molds remind us of a time when food wasn't just about taste, it was about love, presentation, and care. 6. Jell-O molds. If you grew up in the 1950s or 1960s, you probably remember Jell-O molds. These shiny aluminum molds shaped gelatin into circles, stars, and even castle-like forms. At potlucks, family gatherings, or holiday dinners, a colorful Jell-O salad was often the star of the table. Sometimes they were filled with fruit, whipped cream, or even vegetables, strange combinations that now feel like relics of another era. But back then, they were considered the height of creativity. Though they've fallen out of fashion, Jell-O molds captured a spirit of fun and togetherness that still makes people smile when they see them today. 7. Cherry pitters. Summer meant fresh cherries, and cherry pitters were the unsung heroes of pie season. These handheld gadgets popped the pit out with one satisfying squeeze, leaving behind perfect fruit for pies, jams, or just snacking. Kids loved using them, even if it sometimes turned into a messy, juice-splattering job. The counters would be dotted red, but the reward was worth it. Today, most people buy pitted cherries frozen or canned, and the humble cherry pitter rarely makes an appearance. But for those who remember, it was a joyful little tool tied to the sweetness of summer. 8. Glass milk bottles and carriers. Once upon a time, milk wasn't something you grabbed off a supermarket shelf. It was delivered right to your door in heavy glass bottles. Kitchens kept special metal or wooden carriers to hold and pour them easily. The sound of clinking bottles in the morning was as familiar as the smell of coffee. Kids rushed to the door to bring them in, sometimes sneaking a sip of the cold, creamy milk before breakfast. By the 1970s, plastic jugs and cartons replaced glass, and home delivery faded away. But those bottles and carriers remain one of the most iconic memories of mid-century American kitchens. 9. Nutmeg graters. When families cooked from scratch, spices were fresher, and so was nutmeg. Tiny handheld graters shaved the spice directly into pies, cakes, and hot drinks. The warm, fragrant aroma filled the air and felt like home. It was especially common during the holidays, when every kitchen seemed to smell of baked goods and spiced cider. Freshly grated nutmeg was a small detail that made meals feel special. Pre-ground spices eventually took over, and the little nutmeg graters disappeared. But they remind us that cooking was once more sensory, more hands-on, and more connected to tradition. 10. Pie birds. Perhaps the most whimsical of them all, the pie bird. These little ceramic birds were placed in the center of pies to vent steam as they baked. Steam would escape through the bird's beak, keeping crusts flaky and golden. Beyond being useful, pie birds were charming. They often came in bright colors or cute designs, making pies feel like works of art. Kids loved spotting the bird peeking out of a freshly baked pie, waiting for dessert to be served. Today, they're mostly collector's items, but they remind us of a time when even practical tools were made with personality and joy. The kitchen has always been more than just a room, it's where life happened. These tools weren't just objects. They were part of family traditions, holiday meals, and everyday living. And even though they've vanished from modern kitchens, the memories tied to them remain just as warm. So, which of these tools do you remember? Maybe your grandmother had a pie bird, or maybe you took a turn on a butter churn. Share your memories in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us here on Heritage USA as we keep bringing the past back to life, one story at a time.